How I got to Nashville was I actually lived here in the 90s for a little bit, and then I used to live in Indiana, in Southwest Indiana, and I don't recommend that to most people, but that's where I'm from. I got a job in 2012 for a company called True Tone, and we make the one-spot power supply. I'm the multimedia director there, and I was here in town 3 days a week. And during those 3 days, I didn't have a place to stay, so I stayed with Jamie Rowe, who was my friend that we played together in a few Guardian shows and whatnot, made a Guardian record together, and we got to know each other, and we were making music together still. But he opened his house up to me, gave me his guest room to stay 3 nights a week, and that's how I ended up here. And then in 2015, I moved here permanently. Finding my way musically in Nashville has not really been a thing, because I just, it doesn't really cross my mind. You know what I mean? I don't really, it's like, this is what I have to offer. Now, I've gone through times where it's like rock and roll, hard rock especially, has been my main thing, but I dabbled with a little country influence for a few years. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I think when I did the country thing, people were more resistant to that than anything in Nashville. You know what I mean? But at the same time, because I got to do that, I got to play the Bluebird Cafe, I got to do things like that. I got, it sounds stupid, but even being mentioned as your release on the Highways Instagram page is kind of cool. But I never really felt resistance. Just, people who know me for one thing were kind of shocked to hear that side of me. But I've never tried to please Nashville. It's like Nashville is, it's just a great place to live. But I would never live by someone else's opinion here in town about what I do, because it's slowly but surely becoming a rock and roll town, but hard rock has not been the main flavor here for years. I joined in 1990. I was 20 years old, and I'd never been on an airplane before. I'd never been to Los Angeles before. These are all things I wanted to do. So I was so zoned into the LA metal thing that I knew I had to be in Los Angeles. I didn't know how I was gonna get there. But when I joined Guardian, I sent a audition tape, and it was my former band, my first band that I had gotten into when I was 17. And the guitar player had become a friend, and I sent to him, and when I asked him if I could audition, he really discouraged me. And he said, "We know what you sound like, it's okay." I said, "No, dude, I've gotten a lot better. Just let me send a tape." So I just went into a studio and just sang a cappella, and I sent him a song that I'd written and overnighted it. Took him 7 days to pick it up. And on the 7th day, he picked it up and called me immediately. And so next thing you know, I'm on a plane to LA. And it really changed my life, because at that point, I was living in Indiana. I didn't graduate high school traditionally. I got a GED. There wasn't a whole lot of opportunities in my life where I was at, so that was really an escape for me, and it worked out pretty well. Man, the success of Guardian actually happened pretty quickly. We were a Christian rock band, which was kind of like, just abnormal. There weren't that many at the time. Maybe people knew Stryper, maybe knew who Amy Grant was and everything, but for the most part, it was just kind of like, there just weren't a lot out there. And we kind of just had the viewpoint, we're just a rock band, and we feel like we're as good as everybody, so we just happen to sing about our faith. And but things happened pretty quickly. The first record came out, and in that genre really blew up. It became like, oh wow, we finally have something that sounds as good as the other bands we're listening to at the time. And I was 21 years old, sitting in my apartment watching our video on Headbangers Ball on MTV when they played music. Things like that was really cool. So all that stuff happened pretty fast. We got multiple #1 singles like right out of the bat. Toured all over the place. My very first arena gig ever was my 4th gig in Guardian. And it was because, I had a list of goals I wanted to accomplish, and I kept in my wallet, there was things like, even living in LA was on that and everything. But I also had headline an arena, go to Europe, and everything. Little did I know that happened at the same time, because our friends in Stryper had to cancel a show at a festival. And at the last minute, it was so last minute, the promoter's like, well, what are we gonna do? I said, hey, why not invite our friends Guardian? So we had their spot. So this unknown band who's never been to Sweden, all of a sudden is in the headline position in a festival in Gothenburg, 15,000 people, and it just blew up and it went nuts. All the things I wanted to do growing up, like I wanted to, turn the house lights on, let me see everybody. I got to do all that stuff. And I'm not even gonna say we were really great, but I had a great time, And that was cool. Things happen like that, like all the time. And I think, having that goal list really helped. But just to be able to recognize, wow, this is really happening, you know what I mean? The real world was pretty tough for me. I mean, I went through a period of, really hard financial struggle. Just like, I went from, playing an arena or a stadium even in Brazil to like a year later having my electricity shut off because I couldn't pay the bill. You know what I mean? So it was a slap in the face, but my identity, and it's funny, to this day, people still think of me as Jamie Rowe from Guardian. And that's cool. I'm glad, because as an artist, you want to have an audience, you know what I mean? So I'm glad they still remember me. But you can only get a certain amount of knowledge off a record cover, off the music or a music video. You don't really know me, And like I said, you always see the highlight reel. Everything is always the highlight. Well, if you spend enough time with me, you're gonna realize not every day is a highlight reel for me. And so it was tough to no longer be Jamie Rowe of Guardian, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, I still am. Because because I didn't ask for the role, it was given to me. So if that's how other people want to see me, that's fine. But I think if they'll scratch the surface, then I got a lot more stuff in me musically, especially outside of Guardian. Evil praise upon the mind.